This module focuses on the economic analysis of a proposed PV solar plant. Any profitability analysis will need to be built on some assumptions. Here we've assumed that the plant's peak power output will be 10% more than its nominal power. We've assumed a module degradation of 1% per year. That's based on a typical panel manufacturer's expectation of 10% degradation over the first 10 years, and then a further 10% degradation over the next 15 years. We also assume an increase in the price of electricity of 2.5% per year, and we assume an equity investment financing of 20% of the project, while the remaining 80% is financed by a 12-year loan with a grace period of 1 year at an interest rate of 5%. In reality, most loan financing is offered at a variable interest rate indexed to the retail price index. The middle column in this table sets out the typical investment in millions of euros needed for each type of installation based on 2010 prices. The level of investment needed will depend on solar panel prices from manufacturers and the size of the plant. A ground-mounted crystalline module plant requires an investment of around 2.9 million euros, while thin-film modules will reduce the investment need in modules, but if sun trackers are used to maximize production, the investment would need to be 30 to 35% greater. The installation of rooftop facilities costs around 1 euro cent per watt peak more expensive than ground-mounted. We assume a similar fixed maintenance cost for all installations of 200 euros. An assumption of an additional 2% of revenues generated from the energy production also goes to maintenance, and that takes the different sizes of project into account. These assumptions do not include costs for insurance or physical surveillance. Those can be very variable, and also taxes, subsidies, and the cost of regulation are not included. In different countries, government regulations are more or less stringent, and the subsidies and taxes will vary. This map is from a profitability analysis carried out in 2010. There's been considerable development in technology, prices and regulations since then, so it's worth looking at Leonardo Energy's grid parity monitor to gain a more up-to-date picture when you come to your own calculations. For the purpose of this exercise, two different types of facility in two countries were chosen, Germany and Spain. In Germany, production of around 950 kilowatt hours per kilowatt peak per year is estimated. In 2010, via feed-in tariff, ground-mounted facilities could earn 28 euro cents per kilowatt hour, while rooftop facilities could earn between 29 and 37 euro cents per kilowatt hour, depending on the size of the facility. In Spain, estimated production is higher at about 1,350 kilowatt hours per kilowatt hour peak per year. A similar feed-in tariff to Germany was offered of 26 euro cents per kilowatt hour for a ground facility, while the feed-in tariff for rooftops varied from 29 to 33 euro cents per kilowatt hour. While the Spanish tariff was lower, the greater production meant that potential earnings were higher. Of course, tariff calculation and payment methods vary across the world. Here are 5 case studies generating 5 different scenarios from the German and Spanish situations. We look at the 100 kilowatt or 1 megawatt capacity plants depending on the type of technology. And you will see that the estimated production of a sun tracker plant in Germany is around is around 35% higher than for a fixed module ground-mounted plant. Here is an analysis of the profitability of the first case study at the 1 megawatt capacity ground-mounted crystalline module plant in Spain. There are Excel versions of each of these case studies available for download. The analysis should be made over 25 years, the typical lifetime of a PV plant. Installations can last more than 25 years, so any revenues after the 25th year will be unfettered income. As we said before, this assumes a 12-year loan for 80% of the investment of 2.9 million euros. The required investment is calculated by multiplying the total power capacity by the estimated price per watt peak. To cover the loan, we've included a flat loan fee. In the second column are maintenance cost, which is a percentage of the revenues plus a small fixed cost. As the revenues increase each year because of the retail price index, the cost of maintenance will also increase. We also included a cash flow based on the revenues minus the loan fee and maintenance costs. Cash flow is lower during the first 12 years because of the loan repayments. Payback is on the investment occurs in the 6th year. Were amortization of the loan to be higher, would even have a negative cash flow in the earliest years with greater benefit at the end of the project. The level of amortization is dependent also on the balance between loans and investments in the project. And here's a summary of the first case study, the ground-mounted crystalline modules in Spain. The total investment is €3,190,000 and the average income is €385,000 in the first year, rising with the retail price index and the rising price of electricity. Based on a feed-in tariff of 26 euro cents per kilowatt hour, a 20% equity investment and a loan of €2,552,000, an internal rate of return of 23.07% can be expected. If you know the economics of financing, you will know that's a very high IRR. This will be a very attractive project for any financial company. Here's a case study for a thin film model in Spain, where the investment is lower and therefore the loan repayments are lower. While estimated production remains the same, the project delivers an even higher IRR than the crystalline module case study. Please take into account that this is just a rough analysis. A better analysis would need to be done before you could enter a project. Normally the IRR for the crystalline and thin film profitability will vary with detailed factors such as temperatures, land rents and so on. And here's a case study for the 100 kilowatt crystalline module rooftop facility in Germany. Internal rate of return is a tool used all over the world to estimate the financial profitability of solar investments. Normally, financial companies will ask you about the IRR. This rooftop installation promises an internal rate of return of 22.35%. There is more energy generated in PV in Spain, while in 2010 the feed-in tariffs were pretty much the same in Spain as in Germany. The same rooftop installation in Spain would deliver an even higher IRR of about 26.4%. Of course, the renewable energy support situation has been affected in both countries by the financial crises, political changes and the technological developments since these calculations were made. It's important to vary the tariff situation before going ahead with any PV project. The final case study is the sun tracking system in Spain. The investment needed for this ground-mounted system is more than for a fixed system, and despite the increased energy production, the internal rate of return is lower. IRR for the sun tracking system would be about 22.7%, while in a ground installation without sun trackers it would be about 23.07%. In this slide we have an overview on the different types of installations and their IRR. The IRR might be nearly the same, but the risks associated with a sun tracking facility have to be considered when the profitability of sun tracking and non-sun tracking are considered. And actually that's why sun tracking has not been preferred to fixed in many cases.